Well, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. It is 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and another edition of Elevating You, Reaching Your Peak. I'm Kraig Kann, Mike Mooney alongside Jill Bauer as well. Brand new, inspiring career growth conversations. Jill, we missed you last week, and I know you're ready to jump in on this. And it's funny when I have my questions from last week, which I have down here, a couple of the good ones. One of the other ones that is not used is, where the heck was Jill? Okay. That was one of them if you were following along on Facebook. But to everybody out there, good to be with you. Three members of the team. How you guys doing this morning? Mike, start with you.
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing absolutely great. Just a wonderful week, and just looking forward to finishing strong. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Jill, what's been going on in your world?
I was really busy last week. As you know, I had a couple things going on with the Today Show. So that was, like I was hustling all week long. Things have calmed down a little bit this week, but, some other opportunities coming up that I'm starting to jump on, and some things that we're doing through Can Advisory that are exciting. So I'm just glad to be back with you guys. It's nice to see you. I always feel like I'm so glad they welcomed me back.
Yeah, no, we're glad. We're glad to have you. And Mike had like a big lightning strike last night. I mean, thunderstorms going on everywhere.
It was a mess. It was right at the end of the day, and I was in my office in the front of the house, and it sounded like our house just came off the foundation. And my wife and youngest daughter were on the back porch, and they came running in and said, "Oh my God, lightning just struck right here in the backyard." And so, we were all safe. Everything's fine. But, I spent 4 hours on the phone with tech support, with AT&T and DirecTV, because our receiver, was blown out, our internet connection. So I'm literally like on my phone hotspot right now, crossing my fingers that holds through. But, and then you realize how important this is and just getting through life. And I said, so when are they going to be out here to get back up tomorrow? And said, no, Friday by like 8 or 9 p.m. Oh, God. Okay. All right. So
yeah,
here we are.
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do. And it is a little bit fuzzy. If Mike drops out, Jill, it's you and me. Okay. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
sorry,
gang.
That's quite all right. It's quite all right. Okay. So I want to get to our conversation that we had last time. Jill, we missed you. And this was our topic, which is the value in networking and staying connected. Now, what we told people, and this is important, is that that last week and this week is really basically kind of they're joined a little bit. They're two topics that are similar but different. And so we had a really good conversation about the topic of networking and the importance of it. And of course, that means when we're talking about something for 30 minutes, we're going to get some questions, and we did. And so I want to go to last week's questions. And as I said, one was, where's Jill? But here are a couple of others, and they're tied a bit together. So Mike, I'm going to let you go first and react to these. John in New York said, should my networking calls today, meaning, this is a few days ago when he was doing this, be on the phone, or should they be virtual Zoom calls? In other words, should he try to do it that way? And the reason these two questions are tied together is because they're very similar. Marcy in South Carolina said, is it too pushy to ask for my call to be online with video? I feel like networking is better that way, but it can feel awkward. So, both people kind of trying to figure out today's world, right? Are we doing it in that way? Should we push to do it in that way? Or should we do what we've always known, which is simply, phone calls? So, Mike, I'll let you go first on this.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that these are opportunities for us to try new things and maybe get a little uncomfortable and embrace, the newness in technology. My personal opinion is ask for the Zoom chat, but I also put in my notes, hey, are you open for a phone call or a Zoom chat? Give them the option as well. I try to move more towards the Zoom because I love the ability to see someone's face and their facial expressions and their reaction. Then more importantly too, you get to learn about them by seeing what's in their background. Sometimes you'll see something that there's a connection you didn't know that you had. So I would say in today's world, People are more comfortable using Zoom, and I think that we do need to have that interaction, but give them the choice.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of backgrounds, you got some fancy new lighting back there behind you on the shelves to go blue. That's what I'm noticing. And I know Jill's got like, it looks like Hurricane Iris on the wall. I feel like she worked at the Weather Channel, and I always see that spin. You know, when you live in Florida, you're always thinking, "Oh my, here we go."
Yeah.
But that's that.
Awesome.
All right, Jill, what's your take on that about Zoom versus just picking up the phone and talking to somebody?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think, in your answer or in your conversation, it's let's jump on a phone call, or I'd love to do a Zoom call with you too. I mean, I think you let people know that you're open to that, because you never know if on the other side in networking, if they would be open, but they don't know if you are. So be the one who's putting yourself out there and saying, here's what I'm available for, let's connect. And I think, this networking and then talking about connection, which we're going to talk about today, are so important together. And part of that is sort of letting people know where you are.
Yeah, I'll throw one thing out there based on my experience over the last couple of weeks. So just moved into a new house, construction still ongoing within the inside, but it's called a smart home. And Amazon was here yesterday setting up all this stuff because there's these Wi-Fi extenders all over the house and all that sort of thing. But prior to that, I do work for SiriusXM hosting shows, and they will not allow us to do Wi-Fi. Because if everybody in the house hypothetically was on Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi went out, the show would go out, and they won't have that. So you have to do an Ethernet and a hard line drop. I say that because I actually had to have a company come out and run lines across the ceiling, through the attic, and down the walls, and down to where I am in this office that I'm creating, so that I could have hardline internet connection. I bring that up because if you're going to push people to do Zoom and you're going to start doing your meetings, your brand and how you connect with people is literally based on your connection. Okay. So in other words, if your connection is all funky and your Wi-Fi is not good and you're pushing to do Zoom calls, you'd be better off with a strong signal on your phone than you would be to have an intermittent Wi-Fi connection where you're truly not set up for stability. Because I do so many of these webinars and Zoom calls and now virtual keynotes, I can't afford that, and neither should you all out there when you're trying to do that. So to John and to Marcy, I would say, I'll echo what Mike and Jill said. I would ask or try to encourage, not push for, but encourage a Zoom call, because I feel like you can connect better. If I can see Jill, if I can see Mike, I feel like we're really having a conversation, and it doesn't feel like a sales call, and you feel like you're networking more. But make sure, if you're in the art of connection, that you actually are able to stay connected. Okay. So that's where I would go with that. And because that was our topic last week and we liked it so much, here's our topic today, which is the lost art of connection. All right. And I brought this up because, quite frankly, I think it's in Jill's wheelhouse as much or more than it even is with what Mike and I do on a day-to-day basis, because there's no way that Jill could do what she did on air at QVC or with what she's doing with her new brand, Just Jill, if she's not connecting with her viewership, her followers every day. And that's what Mike and I try to do as well, folks. We try to connect with each customer that we have, word of mouth marketing, bigger than ever. And I think it is an important career tool. So where I want to start with this, Jill, is just simply, I'm going to kind of have you define what you believe is connection and how it applies to business, because I think we're all salespeople at the end of the day anyway. So I'll let you go wherever you want to go with it. But connection as a career tool, what would you say?
Well, listen, and especially through that I did at QVC, I learned, whether I realized I was learning it or not, how important people are to people. And having that relationship, the connection leads to your relationship. So being able to talk to somebody and just let them know that you understand what they're going through, where they are, the challenges that they have, the joys that might be in their life. Just sort of when I started at QVC, used to make fun that, the home shopping industry sort of had this stereotype of, older ladies by themselves up in the middle of the night. That was the stereotype for a long time. But what people didn't realize, and maybe it's because I was close to my grandparents, and so like I had different perspectives of dealing with different age groups of adults or whatever it was, but maybe the reason they were up in the middle of the night was because they were a widow and their husband had passed away and they were alone and they were just looking for company. And that is what was always in the back of my mind when I was presenting on QVC. There were hosts who certainly were salespeople. Do you know I never considered myself a salespeople, and I was there for 25 years and all I did was sell. But I never considered myself a salesperson. I wanted to be a connection for them. I wanted to be a friend. I wanted to be their company. And so, and I think that also contributed to my success because it wasn't about the product. It was about the person. Yeah. And then how do I take this product, this mug, and put it into that person's life? And so then it becomes, listen, I bet there are a lot of nights where you're sort of just, you can't sleep. So wouldn't it be nice to be able to get up and get a warm cup of milk and just sit and relax a little bit? And this mug feels so good. Like that's how you spin it. But it all starts with the person, not the product.
Yeah. All right. I would say that's 100% true. And I think we have to, I would challenge people to how many calls can you have? How many meetings can you have without even asking for anything? Just simply know them first before you ever bring up kind of the other part. But the challenge of it is, Mike, is that most people aren't willing to give you that much time to begin with, right? Everybody's time is valuable. I can't tell you how many companies that I've talked to, and we'll do a call and we'll schedule something. And you're lucky if you got 9 to 9:30. You might get 9 to 9:15 or 10 to 10:15. And it forces you into an uncomfortable position of feeling like I've got limited amount of time to let them know what I do. Now, it's also a challenge because it forces you to be able to give them your, I don't want to say pitch, but what you do, how you do it, how you can help them in very short order. And you have to be concise, clear, and have some conviction with your message. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you do. And I kind of want to jump back to Jill's point before, because I love the shift in perspective. When Jill, you were talking about that stereotypical customer, that's what I've always had in my mind. But when you said that maybe they are a widow or a widower, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. And I think if we can shift and put ourselves in the position of the people that we're connecting with, that's powerful. That's powerful because that is a servant service minded approach. And to me, that's always been my focus of, how can I serve? What can I do to help? How can I be a resource to somebody else? Now, Kraig, to your point, when we do have a short amount of time, you're right. You can't get into those more, the art of the connection, which is getting to know more about them. But you can do your research in advance. You can learn about them on LinkedIn. You can see if you have some mutual interest or connections and experience as well that you can definitely bring up, or as you are trying to get that time with them, make note of, which may make them feel, oh, you know what, I'll give this person a little more time. So I do believe it's the combination of, are you there to serve or you're there to sell? And I believe that you can sell. You can sell by serving, but it all depends on your perspective. Am I going in to close a deal, or am I going in to find where there's a need?
Yeah. So I've thrown something up here, and I think.
Don't throw up, man. Don't throw up. Come on. It's too early. It's too early. People don't want to see that. Come on.
People do not buy products first. They buy people first. And then if they are able to connect to the people, they will buy the product. I've never walked on a stage or stood in front of any audience assuming that they're going to buy what let's say I was doing a keynote, that they're going to buy what I'm selling and sign up for consulting for the next 6 months or a year or whatever else. I'm just trying to connect and give them a great experience. The rest of it will take care of itself. And I think we need to think about that approach. Here's one for Jill. And if this doesn't bring her back to our college days, I don't know what will. You remember this quote, Jill?
Is this Kent Collins?
It is. So this is Jill and my favorite professor at the University of Missouri in the journalism school, #1 journalism school in the country. But anyway, he said this, and it has stuck with me for life. You can't preach to anyone unless you can get them into the church. And it's so true in whatever we do. Like, nobody's going to buy into what I'm selling if I haven't connected with them in the first 5 minutes. We'll even say 30 seconds. The average attention span of human being is 8 seconds. But first 30 seconds of your keynote or your speech or your workshop or your meeting, your staff meeting, your conference call, whatever it might be, you have to get them on board. So you might have the greatest message. You might have the greatest thing that you want to sell later. But if you haven't gotten them in there in the first place, then they're never buying into it later. Jill, your thoughts on that?
Well, especially I look at this quote and I think of that quote often. I remember it too, Kraig. And especially with what I'm doing. So it might be a little bit different than, in the traditional workplace, but certainly in this world of social influencing where I'm living right now, I can't do anything unless I get them there. So how do I get them there? I get them there with authenticity. I get them there with just me being myself. I get them there by putting out a variety of content that I think will appeal to everyday living, because that's really sort of what the brand is, right? So, I'm putting out the recipes. I'm putting out the decor ideas. I'm learning how to do Instagram reels. What is it? I don't know, but I'm learning, but I'm doing it all. I'm doing it all because that's where everybody is. And so I need to make sure, and I think this goes back to sort of what you were both saying, when you're trying to connect with somebody, you have to do a little bit of homework on your end, right? You need to know a little bit about that person. You need to be able to take a look at their background like you did with Mike and comment on something. And then does that lead into a conversation? When I think a lot of this connecting and serving before selling is really what my North Star was my whole, career at QVC. But then I also think when I went to New York for the first time to meet with the producers at Today, I was meeting this gal for coffee. I had all of 10 minutes. She didn't know who I was. And I didn't even know if having QVC as a pedigree would be of interest to the Today Show. Like, did they still think I could be on TV and do what they needed to do? And so I just started talking to her like, hey, how are you? Do you have kids? Like, I just talked to her as a person, not as somebody who was potentially going to give me a job, just as a person. And do you know, this was like one of those moments I will remember for the rest of my life. She stopped me in the middle of our conversation and she said, "Can I just tell you something?" Okay. She said, "I really like you." And that was like the angels started to sing. But I think it's because I didn't go into it like I'm meeting with the Today Show and I have to be so this. And I was myself. I just went in and I was myself. And maybe I was a little bit more relaxed than other people interviewing with her might have been. I didn't go in there with any airs. I didn't go in there with any real expectations. I just went in there with me. And I think so many of us, because of social media, oftentimes try to look like something we're not or present things like something we're not. And really, at the end of the day, this art of connection is about being authentic and being who you are, flaws and all. So I think, it's really just about, I go back to people want to know they matter. Yeah. And I think that's what has been lost in the world of technology. Because words in a text aren't the same as hearing someone say it.
Well, you got to have a message and you got to get them there to be able to hear the message. And I think the difference between, if we focus on the person on the opposite end as opposed to us, right? You were just trying to get to know somebody. You didn't have an agenda, as you say, but the difference between somebody else reaching or not reaching their goals, right? Think of what they're trying to accomplish at the Today Show, using that as an example, could be the value you bring to them or what you don't bring to them. And you have to think about it from that perspective. Here's an interesting thing that I think everybody out there needs to think about. So let's do a Google search on ourselves. All right. A Google search today gives people more in, let's say, 10 minutes about somebody or some brand than it could have been out there for in a lifetime 10 years ago. Like, it would have taken you so much more time to find and research and learn about, back then than it does now. In an instant, we can learn about somebody, what their brand is, what they stand for, etc. So you got to make sure that what's out there about you is going to entice me to want to connect with you. In other words, think about all those things that are out there about yourself. What value are you bringing to the table? What are you putting out there? I mean, this is what Mike talks about, all the time. And connection is so important, but you've got to make me want to connect. Why am I intrigued by you? What can you do to help me? And Jill, in a minute, I want to get to your backyard fence.
Kraig, while got you?
Yeah, gotcha now.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, you froze there for a second, Kraig.
Froze for a hot second. If I wanted to throw in another twist into this connection piece too, because Jill hit on it really well, which is this isn't haphazard. It isn't something that just happens. You need to do some work. Correct, to your point, we have the resources to be able to, connect and learn more about people. But I always loved, I'll tell you, in the years that I had 25 years in professional motorsports and working with teams and sponsors and drivers, a lot of my role and what I was asked to do was be a connector. And that was essentially looking at two different people or groups of people and saying, where are the connection points? How can I connect dots? How can I bring them together? Now, there's no direct benefit to me per se, but I also think an art in the connection is not just you connecting with someone, but how can you be a connector to others? How can you see and bring two people who would not have had the opportunity or known to connect and say, hey, you need this, you need that, but besides it, and I always say this, you two are just great people. And great people need to know each other and need to connect. And then I bet you'll find some other opportunities once you get to know each other.
Yeah.
And that was a part of my job that I took immense pleasure in. And quite honestly, I was very intentional with it. I set a goal that every week that I would do at least 3 connects. That might be on LinkedIn, it might be through email, it might be in person. But I was very intentional in setting a goal to do that and make it part of my practice. And I really think that was something that benefited me in my brand, right, in my reputation and building my network as well.
Yeah, really good. Look, there's building blocks in every one of our foundations. And so for everybody out there, think about yours. Think about the people. Like, if you have your little tree and then you think, all right, I've got these people that I've met along the way in my job, in my career, et cetera. Now, what value did they bring to me and what did I bring to them? And why is this connection valuable to me and how can I be of value to them? Yesterday, I was thinking about something yesterday. I have a buddy who's out of work and lost his job, and he's just uber talented. And he's not the only one I know. There are a bunch, okay? I'm sure we all have been there. And I started thinking, look, it's not like I'm uber busy like everybody thinks they're all so busy today. We're not. I mean, things are a little bit different. And with that, man, can you spend a little time and help some people out? I wasn't trying to play hero or anything with my LinkedIn post, but if somebody needs a connection, if they need a little push or a boost, or I could write a LinkedIn recommendation or a letter for somebody to help them in their next job or land something, I've got a little time, And so I think sometimes we have to think about what we can do for somebody else. And I think connection is a lot more, for all of us who are in front of audiences, yes, we want to connect with our audience, but it's bigger than that. It's, and Mike talked about this a few weeks back. It's the handwritten note. It's the phone call when they're not expecting it. It's on Fridays, can you spend and block 3 hours off and make 3 to 4 phone calls with somebody that you haven't talked to, a past client or whatever? Mm-hmm. That's where the lost art is. If I go back to the topic today, is the lost art of connection, and why it's such a valuable career tool is that people don't want to spend the time unless they feel, most people feel like, if I can't gain something from this, it's not worth my time. I disagree. I think sometimes when you're not trying to gain anything at all, Jill, is when the greatest benefit comes back to us.
Absolutely. I mean, I first of all, I love, Mike, when you were talking about, be the connector. Like, that really resonated with me. And I don't know that I'd really ever thought about it in that way before. So thank you for that, because I think that's huge. I think sometimes, we on QVC, we used to talk a lot about the anti-sell. And the anti-sell basically, and I used it a lot because I felt like it was my connection to the customer in a way to be truthful for them, because I knew that a certain product was not going to work for particular people. But I think that you can take that idea of, hey, listen, if you really don't like I'm just using a cosmetic product because that's what came to my mind. If you don't really like products that feel really heavy on the skin, this isn't the right one for you, right? So there's the anti-sell. But I think if you put that in perspective for yourself and you're approaching these situations, again, with not putting sales or selling yourself top of mind, but instead what you're really selling is you just by being you. That's the key, I think. I think people get so amped up sometimes in the way that they're trying to present themselves, and they're trying to get all of their accomplishments out there, and they're wanting to get this sale so bad that it's really affecting the way in which they're presenting things and how they're putting themselves out there. And there's a lot to be said. Again, I go back to just being you. Start there. And then let everything else come on the backside of it. And that also allows you to go into these situations where you're not seeking anything, you're just being you. And I think that's what happened with me with the Today Show. I mean, of course I wanted it, but it was just an initial meeting. Listen, if she didn't like me, I wasn't going to get an opportunity to do a segment. Mm-hmm. But to me, it was more just like, well, let me just meet her and let's see what happens. So it's really just about going in there and being who you are, being true to that, using that as a springboard to connect with somebody, whether you're talking business or talking personal, and don't always try to figure out, and how am I going to get something out of it? Because by not doing that, you might get more out of it than you expected.
Are you suggesting, by the way, that Mike and I don't use products like that? Because I don't know.
I'll get you guys on a skincare regimen that's really tailored for you if you'd like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I still know what NW35 is, for gosh sakes. Okay, I've worn some makeup in my time. I'm not ashamed of it.
Is that in the same category as WD-40? Not on my skin.
Not oily skin.
Right. But Jill, you bring up a point though that I think, and I don't mean to kind of take us down another path, but it's just a thought to put out there, and this might be a topic for another conversation. Is yes, it is all about being authentic and showing up as the person first, but there are a lot of people that are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, true.
Not everybody is at that place where they are comfortable in their skin or in the situation, regardless of the stress or the pressure that, oh my God, I need this job because I'm behind on my mortgage. Oh my God, I need this job because right. But it's really, truly, I believe that because of the 3 different experiences that we've each had, the pain, right? I mean, you're forged through those experiences where, you've been beaten up and you're really having to really dig deep to soul search, but to figure out who you are, to where I believe the 3 of us are very comfortable in our skins, and will show up without that I have to prove something, but not everybody is there. And I think that perhaps the takeaway on that is, if you are in that place, it's okay because it's normal, but it's also an opportunity to maybe spend some time on yourself and to really reflect on that and dig in and think about, where is that authenticity? Where am I coming from?
I have a rule, every keynote or talk that I give, no matter the size of the audience. So let's say they say, Kraig, we want 45 minutes from you, or they have an hour. Then I have the match it rule. I will be there at least, now most of the time you fly in the night before, but I will stay afterwards at least the same amount of time as I'm talking to connect with people, to chat with them, to give them a little something more than me going up on a stage and walking off a stage and leaving. And if I'm flying in, I remember doing a talk in Indianapolis, and it was kind of day of, and I flew in, and there was like a little bit of a gathering, a lunch gathering. I don't hide in the back. I'll go out and interact with some people for 45 minutes or so, then do my talk, so they don't feel like I'm this hired gun that comes in there and just does my thing. And I think that's really, really important, to spend time getting to know people to the best of your ability, whether it could be a dinner the night before your meeting that you instigate, right? Not that they're instigating. Try to be that instigator sometimes that tries to connect and be that connector and get people to feel good about what's coming. Jill, can you talk about the backyard fence philosophy?
Yeah. So, and then before I jump into that,
Sure.
Something that you just said, I think, sort of spawned something in my brain too. In talking about connection, one of the things that I have done through my social media when I was at QVC and now with just Jill, I read every comment. Sometimes there's 1,000 of them. I read them all. And I like them, or I respond. I don't respond to all of them, but I respond to a lot of them. And that has been my policy with my followers, even when I was back at QVC, even when I had somebody managing my page back at QVC who could have done it as my voice, I did it. Because I felt, to your point, Kraig, I felt it was important to get to know these people that were coming by. Absolutely. And now I can tell you, like, I know the names of a lot of the people who follow me. There's one gal who's been following us and coming over to Can Advisory to these talks. And, she happened to mention a couple weeks ago that she was going for a job interview. Well, I happened to see that she commented on another post I did, and I jumped in and I said, how are the job interviews going? She was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, they're going good. I'm in the final round. Like, so, it's those little things. And to your point, like, you budget the same amount of time on the back end as your talk. My feeling always was, if people are taking time out of their world to comment on my posts, then I owe it to them to take time out of mine to acknowledge and say thanks. So I just wanted to share that, because I think whether it's social media or giving the extra time on the back end, that reciprocation of what someone is giving to you and what you can then give back is really an important thing that I'm not sure everybody always really puts a lot of thought into.
Yeah, I've always tried on Twitter, just if somebody follows me, for the most part, I'm gonna message them back right away and just say, hey, thanks for the follow. Hope it's valuable for both of us. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Well, and just to that point, like, I'm sorry I keep going down this path, but I think in this day of everything being technological and almost somewhat anonymous when you're on social media, to actually have a connection and an interaction that way, that to me is what makes social media worthwhile. It's that kind of a connection, not just posting that I made a new cherry lime jalapeno salsa. It's about
which I bet is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
new recipe coming, by the way. I just made it
backyard. Can we get to the backyard fence philosophy, please?
Yes, sorry.
But why, is she making you hungry? What's the problem, Kraig?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big chips and salsa guy. People that know me
know.
There
was a lot in that just sort of like flooded. The backyard fence. So what is that? So, I think one of the reasons why the team at QVC and the host team there was really sort of all of the home shopping opportunities out there, were always sort of seen as the best, was because our philosophy and training, if you will, or just more of a reminder, was talk to your audience as if you're just talking to a neighbor over the backyard fence. Don't talk at them. Have a conversation, share, like, oh my gosh, can I just show you this really cool thing that I got? Like, it was sort of that way to approach it, as opposed to, this is a mug and it's made out of this. It was more just like, hey, what's going on? And sometimes not even talking about the product, right? But while you were holding it, it's all about remembering that I've said it several times in this talk this morning that, people are really people, and people want to know they matter. And people are looking for that connection, whether they're shy or outgoing, extrovert, introvert. They just want something that they can find a commonality with. Mm-hmm. And so keeping in mind that you're just talking to somebody like you talk to a neighbor across the backyard fence was a really strategic tool certainly for me, and how I would go out and present things in my day-to-day.
All right, so here's where I want to go with our last 5 minutes, and I'm going to Mike first on this, okay? That way you can say whatever you were about to just say. Now let's spin this forward to somebody. Okay, we've given them all these philosophies that we have on the art of connection. Yeah. Let's move it into self-help. Here's what you need to do, or try this, or spend a little time doing this. All right, mm-hmm. Putting it into use. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say to Jill's point, I love that analogy, because what that just did, and the flip of the switch of talking to your neighbor across the fence, is it paints a mental picture that people can relate to. You need a fence? Well, maybe. I'm going to say good fences make good neighbors. I think that was the old right. So putting it to action truly is now you have to put the ball in play. It's great that we talked about this, but what can you do? Here would be something I would encourage you to do. First is think about the words you're using. Like I intentionally use the word I would encourage you to do, not you should do this or I think you should do this. I will encourage you to try this. Mm-hmm. So think about the words that you're using and how they're either bringing people into your space, getting you closer, or maybe it's pushing them away. So first off, words matter. Think about your words. Get a list of the words that are encouraging, that are words that make people want to lean in, right? Questions. What do people love to talk about? Themselves. So get some questions in your mind that you would want to ask people. And then the third thing I would recommend you do is start setting some goals. Get on LinkedIn, reach out to 3 people this week. Heck, today, identify 3 people today that you would like to connect with and reach out to them. Try it, put it into play. Hey, would you be interested in a Zoom chat or a phone call? I see we have this in common. I'd love to get to know you better and what you do.
Yeah, I've used your and my relationship on a lot of conversations with people. For everybody out there, Mike and I have known each other for the better part of, I would say, 3 years. We didn't start doing anything together until we truly figured it out. I think we were both kind of hey, let me pay attention to this guy for a little while and see if we mix, we merge, whatever. So it took about 2 years, maybe a little more, before we figured it out. And truth be told, one of the reasons he was on my podcast was because I wanted to hear Mike in action. Like I haven't been on in a room to watch him on stage, and I hadn't done that. But I wanted to put the questions to him and hear his story and do all that. So it was a test. He crushed it, all that. Not that
I didn't realize that till after. I was like, wait, this was an audition.
it was a little bit of an audition.
I'm glad I wore a collared shirt.
I wouldn't have put him on if I didn't think he had all this value to share with my audience on it. So I think it's important to have patience as well. Mm-hmm. And so I would tell everybody that use your connections wisely, figure out what you can do with what's your message, what you're going to share with people, connect others. This guy, Dwayne Cummings, that's become a friend of mine. He founded the Speakers Guild of America. He's been a CEO of multiple companies. He spends a lot of his time putting people together. And that's a very valuable tool. So that's what I would suggest you do. Jill?
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines as what Mike was talking about is, where can you go reach out today to try to make a connection? And whether that is going on LinkedIn, or it might even be through other social media channels, you can always direct message people. So that's another way that you can kind of put yourself out there. Or it might just be, connecting with somebody that maybe if you're in a situation where you're looking for a job, you're looking for a move, whatever your circumstances might be, always look ahead, but don't forget about the people that you may have worked with in the past. Like, where can you establish a reconnection with somebody that you worked with 5 years ago, or that helped you one time, or is now at a different company. I mean, that goes back to the network about last week. But I think that's important too. It's looking forward, but don't forget about what happened behind you, because there might be some people there that can help you as well.
All right. Before we get to next week's topic, I'm going to put this in front of everybody. I'm not going to throw it in front of everybody, as Mike was talking about earlier.
Thank you.
This is how we've all banded together. And Jill, we found this out last week. I like it when other people do the talking and not me all the time. This is what we're offering. And I'm going to let Mike start with how it all came to be and what it is we're trying to do.
Yeah. So, oftentimes when speakers, or more than often, not only speakers, but when companies are looking for solutions and ways to empower, inspire, grow the people that are on their teams, they look for singular solutions. And it could be on sales, it could be on speaking, it could be on branding. And as Kraig and Jill and I were coming together and connecting more and thinking about the skills that we share and the work that we do and how really, quite honestly, complementary they are, so why don't we just go in with the one solution? Why don't we go in with an experience that is going to hit on the idea of sales and branding and personal storytelling and presentation skills, so that people are seeing how all of these links in the chain come together. Mm-hmm. And they're seeing it in a very interactive and engaging experience with what I think are three really cool people. Yeah. So this is really an opportunity, we feel, to be able to go in and elevate and be catalysts to help teams actually level up.
And, a lot of people are probably saying, well, wait a second, I get to watch you guys each week on Thursday. And if you do, thank you so much. We really appreciate the growing audience. But I will tell you, and I will let Jill tell you, that what we're doing for 2 hours in these virtual workshops is completely different from what we're doing here. We steer you into our own special, specialties, if you will, and put things in our wheelhouse that we would share in a keynote or that we would share in our workshop, and we bring it all together. Jill, I'm going to let you talk about the benefits for companies who would want to bring the three of us together and what they would get out of that.
Well, first of all, I agree with Mike. I'm so excited to work with the two of you. So I think, the synergy of the three of us and our backgrounds brings something pretty dynamic, whether it's, the power of presentation, which Kraig and I know really, really well, whether it's, building that branding message, which how to do really well. And Kraig and I have had to learn because of where we are with our careers. And I think most importantly, what I think the different companies should understand is we customize this. So this is not a one size fits all for us. We're really excited about customizing it to your business, to your team. And I think that that's something that is pretty hard to find out there in this webinar space, to have a team that has the experience of elevating your sales team on all aspects of what sales and marketing are all about, and have it completely be customized to your company. Sorry, whether you're a smaller company or a bigger brand, we're working together to make it, a real holistic approach so that it's just yours.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. The last word is very important to me in this. All of my Elevate workshops that I do on my own, it's communication, presentation, branding. But the fourth is the biggest one. It is a bonding experience. It's interactive. It's high energy. People get to know each other a lot better. They feel like team. Yes, we're going to share the power of presentation. Yes, we're going to talk about driving your brand influence. Yes, we're going to talk about connecting with your customers and letting sales come to you without you having to work so hard to bring them your products and pushing it out there at them. We want to talk about winning the room and then winning the web as well with this little camera. All those things are important, but at the end of the day, we want it to be something special for a team, so that when the camera goes off and we are done with that experience, they're walking away saying, wow, I got to know Frank better. I got to know Jenny a lot better. I feel like our team is amazing. And all of those things to me are as important as anything, especially today in a world where, everybody's distanced. They really are. I mean, forget the 6 feet. We're talking 6 miles. We're talking 60 miles. We're talking 600 miles as people are all across the country connecting via this. And we want to bring them an experience and some tools that they can use in their career. Okay. Now, to next week's topic, which I think for each and every one of us will be fun to discuss. And it is be an entrepreneur. Now you're at home and you're saying, wait a second, I'm not an entrepreneur. I work for, this company or that company. I have a boss. Okay. My thought is you don't need a business. You need a mindset. And we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial mindset and how it can help you day to day. Yes, we'll share our stories. We'll find out why Mike made his pivot, why Jill made her pivot, why I made my pivot, what we've learned, our failures. Yes, I said failures along the way, and why those are so valuable to people. I can't wait for this one, Mike. You got to be excited about that one, huh?
Well, I am, because it hits close to home and it's still fresh. And I can tell you that I'm looking forward to it, because this is an opportunity to not only share the stories, but let people know that there is opportunity there. And it does all start with the mind. It's all mindset. I really, really believe that.
Yeah. Jill?
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. I mean, I think it's a topic we've all lived. So, and we've all learned. That's the thing. And I love it. I love the mindset of an entrepreneur, and because I think it challenges you to be curious, and it allows you to be creative. So I'm excited to talk more about that.
Well, I'm excited about tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to be announcing my first guest for season 2 of Tracks to Success. And season 1 was so awesome. I've thrown up some of the featured guests for season 2, again. 15. There's some names on there that you might recognize. And tomorrow I'll announce the launch guest for next Monday, August the 17th. But to have Cole Swindell on there as a country music star, Jim Weatherby, a NASA astronaut, 6 missions to outer space, 5 as a commander, was an amazing opportunity. Chris Pronger's an NHL Hall of Famer. That's why I threw hockey at you guys earlier. Mm-hmm. Nicole Lappin's a writer, author of multiple books. There's just some amazing talent. Joe Buck, we all know from Fox Sports. So I'm excited about that. Mike, I wanted you to be able to share a little bit about what you're doing, because I saw that you've got something coming up as well. And Jill, I know what you're doing. You're busier than ever. So we'll get to the upcoming things for you. Mike, what's going on?
Well, I a lot of things, a lot of good things, but one that I'm really excited about. I've got a good friend of mine named Kraig Reynolds, and he's a former pro BMX rider and racer, as well as a professional photographer. And he's launched a program called the Real Influencers Project, and it's a Instagram program, but also podcast. And he was kind enough to ask me to come on and be part of that show to share my story. So that'll be coming up next week. It'll be launching.
Very cool. So, very cool. Yeah. We'll be able to see that online. Jill, what's going on?
I actually have sort of a down week, which, for me basically means that I'm sitting at my computer, like from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m, just doing stuff online, but not
an entrepreneur.
A lot of stuff. But, I'm getting ready to do a lot of content for the fall, and the holiday season, believe it or not. Like, we start shooting that now, so we have it. So I'm working on that. I do have a couple things coming up for the Today Show, but probably more into September. And maybe some pivoting on Just Jill a little bit. So more on that to come.
Yeah. Hey, Jill, how's that book coming along? Mike and I were hammering you on your book project.
Yes. Well, I have put some work into it. So, it's on the list of things I'm doing. I can't say right now it's at the top of my list, but I actually did type up a few recipes so that they are a living, breathing document now. So I'm working on it.
Mike Mooney, speaking of influencers, buddy, good job.
I love it.
Yeah,
so good.
That's good. Well, guys, I want to say thanks as always. This has been a lot of fun, and to everybody out there for spending some time with us on Thursday. Here's the one thing I want to challenge our audience. Yes, we put up this line of hey, send your questions to us at Can Advisory Facebook, or you can email them as well, and we read them each and every week. But I want to take it a step further. I want to challenge you to throw some topics out at us, okay? And we already know what our topic is next week. It's about being an entrepreneur. But if there's something that you would like us to share or talk about that can help you, look, this is all about connection, right? We talked about that today. So feel free to give us your opinions, your topics, things that are on your mind, and things that you would like us to talk about. We'll definitely use it. And that's what makes it fun for us on Thursday mornings. So with that, I'll say thanks to everybody. Elevating you, reaching your peak. Kraig Kann, Mike Mooney, Joe Bauer, inspiring career growth conversations. You guys have a great day today. And to everybody out there, and by the way, Mike, I hope you get your internet solved, because that's a nightmare with storms and all of that stuff. And Jill, enjoy sitting at your desk for 12 hours today. Like we all do. People say, being an entrepreneur, yeah. What does that mean? I said, oh, it's not 9 to 5, it's 5 to 9. Okay.
That's it. You got it.
5 to 9. So anyway, all right, folks, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. And we will see you again next Thursday. Take care.